1969, Alfa Romeo delivered more than just a car. They delivered a feeling. The GTV wasn't transportation, it was temptation on four wheels. A symphony of sheet metal sculpted by Giugiaro, paired with the unmistakable soundtrack of that twin-cam engine. This wasn't just Italian engineering, it was Italian opera, only with pistons instead of tenors. And when it arrived, oh, did you know? You didn't see a GTV, you felt it. By the late 1960s, Alfa Romeo had already established itself as a brand that blended racing pedigree with everyday desirability. But like every good Italian story, it needed a sequel. Something that took what was already adored and refined it into something unforgettable. Enter the 1750 GTV, officially launched in late 1967 and revealed to the press in January of 1968. It stepped into the shoes of the Giulia Sprint GT Veloce, which, by the way, was no slouch itself. Replacing that car was a bit like being asked to follow Pavarotti on stage. It's daunting, but if anyone could carry the tune, it was Alfa. The name 1750 wasn't chosen at random. It harked back to Alfa Romeo's own pre-war 1750 models, which were known for their balance of refinement and performance. Reviving the number was as much about nostalgia as it was about engineering credibility. Alfa wanted buyers to know this wasn't just the next iteration, it was the rebirth of a legend. And what really set the 1750 GTV apart was Alfa's decision to streamline its lineup with a very clever strategy. Fit their cars with twin-cam engines across the board. It sounds like corporate jargon today, platform standardization and all that, but back then, it meant you didn't have to buy the top-of-the-line model to get that intoxicating high-revving engine. Whether you were in the market for a family saloon or a two-door coupe, you got the soul of Alfa's racing heritage under the hood. Imagine walking into a bakery where every loaf of bread tastes like it was made by a Michelin star chef. That was Alfa Romeo in the late 60s. The 1750 GTV's place in that strategy was crucial. It wasn't just about power, although the twin-cam engine gave it plenty of it. It was about character. The GTV had sharper performance, tighter handling, and a design language that made rivals look like they were still doing their homework. It carried itself with the confidence of a car that knew it was special but without the arrogance of shouting about it. In true Italian fashion, it let the curves do the talking. So, when the GTV rolled onto the scene, it wasn't simply another model on the showroom floor. It was Alfa Romeo staking its claim. This is how motoring should feel. A little wild, a little romantic, and unmistakably alive. Having set the stage with its arrival, the 1750 GTV now had to prove it was more than just a pretty face. And it did so with numbers that mattered. Beneath that elegant body sat a 1,779cc twin-cam engine producing around 122 PS. On paper, that might not sound earth-shattering by today's standards, but in practice, it was all about the delivery. The twin-cam layout gave it a lively character, rev-happy and eager, while the carburetors fed it with a raw edge that turned every stretch of road into an impromptu stage. For American buyers, Alfa swapped the carbs for Spica-mechanical fuel injection, partly to satisfy emission rules, but also to keep that Italian performance accessible on US soil. It was Alfa's way of saying, even if Uncle Sam insists on regulations, we'll still sneak some romance under the hood. And people responded. In 1970 alone, Alfa produced over 11,500 examples of the 1750 GTV. Think about that for a moment. A niche Italian coupe selling in five-figure numbers in a single year. Clearly, this wasn't just a boutique sports car. It was a movement. But of course, passion doesn't stand still, and neither did Alfa Romeo. By 1971, the company unveiled the 2000 GTV, the natural evolution of the line. Out went the 1.8 and in came a larger 1,962cc twin cam, pushing power up to about 132 PS. That extra displacement didn't just mean horsepower, it brought added torque, making the car more flexible, more usable, and frankly, even more enjoyable when the road turned twisty. Alfa also refined the interior with a smoother, more modern dash layout, which gave the cabin a touch of elegance that matched its exterior flair. The shift from 1750 to 2000 wasn't about reinventing the wheel, it was about polishing the masterpiece. The curves stayed, The stance remained sharp and the spirit was unchanged. If anything, Alfa proved that the GTV wasn't a one-hit wonder, it was a symphony with multiple movements, each one building on the last. And just like the best Italian compositions, it only grew richer as it evolved. If the engine gave the GTV its voice, then the design gave it its soul. Coming off the success of the 1750 and into the 2000, one thing remained untouchable: the styling. Penned at Bertone by a young Giorgetto Giugiaro, yes, the same man who would later shape everything from the VW Golf to the DeLorean, the GTV was a masterclass in balance. Its proportions were perfectly judged, neither bulky nor fragile. Its flowing roofline melting into a muscular rear with quad headlights up front that gave it a face both elegant and purposeful. Some cars from the 60s look like relics now. The GTV still looks ready for its close-up. If beauty could be bottled, this coupe would be sold out permanently. But style without substance is just sculpture, and the GTV was far more than that. On the road, it had an agility that placed it firmly among the great European GTs of the 1960s. Its chassis was responsive without being unforgiving, its steering alive with feedback, and the suspension tuned to strike that perfect middle ground between comfort and control. It wasn't about raw speed, it was about connection. The car invited you into the experience, letting you feel every camber, every bend, and every heartbeat of the engine. Even today, a half a century on, owners talk about the GTV not in terms of lap times or top speeds, but in terms of emotion. Drive one and it's less like piloting a machine and more like dancing with a partner who knows all the right moves. This is why it's remembered not just as another coupe from the 60s, but as one of the quintessential GT cars of its time. And if you think that sounds like hyperbole, well, perhaps you just haven't heard an Alfa twin cam at full song. Of course, no Alfa Romeo story is complete without a nod to Motorsport, because the brand's road cars didn't just look and feel the part, they carried DNA straight from the track. We've just talked about the elegance and agility of the GTV on the open road, but its bloodline runs even deeper. Before the 1750 and 2000 took their bows, there was the GTA, a homologated lightweight coupe that set the tone for everything that followed. Built between 1965 and 1969, the GTA swapped out steel for aluminum parts, trimming the fat and turning a stylish coupe into a genuine racing weapon. It wasn't just an Alfa you drove, it was one you strapped on like armor. The GTA laid the groundwork, but things escalated with the GTAm, based on the later 1750 and 2000 GTV models. These were the thoroughbreds, tuned to deliver up to 240 PS in race trim with performance that gave them a dominant edge in European touring car championships. The GTAm, M standing for Maggiorata or enlarged, wasn't just about the engine, it was about its attitude. It was bigger, bolder, and built for battle, and battle they did, winning races and cementing Alfa Romeo's reputation as a brand that didn't just sell sporty coupes, but proved them on the toughest circuits in Europe. This racing pedigree wasn't marketing fluff, it was a living, roaring connection between the car on the track and the one on the street. When you drove a GTV, you weren't just cruising in a stylish Italian coupe, you were tapping into the same spirit that conquered touring car grids. And that, perhaps more than anything, explains why the GTV continues to resonate. It wasn't pretending to be a racer because it was one, just dressed in road clothes. Having conquered the track and stolen hearts on the road, the Alfa Romeo GTV has since taken its rightful place in the pantheon of classics. Its endurance isn't down to a single factor, it's the rare combination of beauty, driving engagement, and sheer character that keeps it relevant decades later. Cars come and go, but the GTV has that intangible quality that resists time. It's the kind of machine that reminds us why we fell in love with driving in the first place. Today, that magic translates into serious collector appeal. Well-kept examples are increasingly hard to find, and when they do appear, they command the kind of attention usually reserved for fine art. And perhaps that's fitting, because the GTV was always more than a car, it was sculpture in motion. Equal parts performance and poetry. There's also that old saying among enthusiasts, if you don't own an Alfa at some point, are you really a petrol head? The GTV is the car that keeps that line alive. Owning one isn't about practicality. It isn't about numbers on a spec sheet. It's about being part of a tradition. a kind of secret handshake among true enthusiasts, and that's why 50 years later, the GTV hasn't faded into obscurity. Instead, it has settled comfortably into legend. In the end, the Alfa Romeo GTV from 1969 to 1974 wasn't just steel and rubber. It was a promise. A promise that driving could still be art, that cars could be more than appliances, and that passion could be built into every curve and every rev. Half a century later, that promise still echoes. The GTV endures not because of nostalgia alone, but because it captured something universal: the thrill of connection, the joy of design, the romance of the open road. It's proof that sometimes the soul of a car matters more than the speed of it. And if you've ever stood beside one, or better yet driven one, you know exactly why it still holds such power. This was Alfa Romeo at its most honest, bold, beautiful, and unforgettable. Now, if you enjoyed diving into the story of the GTV, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more timeless automotive tales, and let us know in the comments which classic deserves the spotlight next. After all, the best stories are the ones we share.